Welcome back to my channel. This is Adrian. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Much appreciated. We're on episode 3 of Texas Haunted Forts. Tonight I'll be reading you Real Presidio de San Saba. Soldiers were sent to protect the original Presidio de San Saba, built of stone in April of 1757, and the nearby mission stockade, erected on the east bank of the San Saba River, sporting buildings constructed of wood and logs. The mission, also known as San Luis de las Amarillas, served nearly 400 settlers, as well as a few Apache Indians working as servants to the priests and settlers. In March 1758, a Comanche raiding party swooped down on the settlement and took a large herd of horses. This is when Colonel Parrilla called his troops to general quarters, then sent orders to evacuate the mission. The priests were to gather the residents to the Presidio de San Saba until such time as it was safe to go back to the mission. After the full moon, known by the native Indians as the Comanche moon, Father Alonso Geraldo de Terreros, president of the mission, refused to leave the mission unprotected. His goal was to civilize all the savage Indians on the prairie, including the Apache and the Comanche. After a heated argument between Colonel Parrilla and the Father President, Terreros agreed to evacuate the mission on the following day. The morning dawned bright and clear, but the missionaries and settlers were awakened to the blood-curdling war cries of some 2,000 Comanche Indians. The Comanches gave no quarter, killing and wounding many settlers. They also killed 2 of the 3 priests who guided the settlers. Fray Miguel de Molina lay quietly hidden under fodder straw near the stock pens where the horses and donkeys milled about, clutching his rosary and prayed to be blessed Virgin Mary, hoping he could not be heard over the screams of agony of the bloodthirsty war cries of the savage Comanche Indians. He prayed that the soldiers in the Presidio across the river could hear the screams and would come to the rescue of those in the mission. He knew if the soldiers at the Presidio heard, they would want to help, but they were so few he didn't look for them rescue the settlers. As the battle calmed, Fray Molina peeked out through the straw of his hiding place and watched in horror as the Comanches surrounded the kneeling priest, Fray Jose de Santesbian. Molina could hardly suppress the screams of terror when the Indians beheaded his friend. Burrowing deeper into the straw, Fray Molina held his rosary close to his lips and whispered another prayer for the soul of Fray Santesbian. Frightened to the depth of his soul, he glanced through the straw again and saw the residing Apaches and 1 soldier slipping away from the destroyed mission and the savage Comanches. Surely they would send help from the Presidio. Time passed slowly, and sound of Fray Sebastian's gurgling death replayed in Molina's mind. As quickly as the Comanches came, they left the mission, leaving in their wake the destruction and death they caused. All was quiet once more, and Fray Molina peered out from his cover to make certain the savages no longer occupied the mission walls. Heartbroken by the carnage and destruction of his beloved mission, he set out to find survivors. After searching a short time, he found a few residents of the mission huddled together under a pile of charred debris. Urging the terrified people to leave their hiding place, he whispered, "Come along, my children. We must leave at once for the Presidio de San Saba, lest the savage Comanches return." One woman's leg had been broken when the wall of a hut had fallen on her. Fray Molina carried her. The others, most of whom were wounded, followed quietly, still in shock from the carnage and horrible deaths they had witnessed. Stealing away from the destroyed mission under the cover of darkness, the priest and his ragtag group stayed close to the underbrush before attempting to cross the river. Molina whispered to the residents he had to come to love as his family and showed them what to do in order to get across the river without being detected by the Comanches. He cut limbs from a nearby bush and stuck them behind the parishioner's head, then down into his blouse. "Now that is better. You look just like a bush from the back now. The Comanches will have a hard time distinguishing you from the foliage along the riverbanks. Fording the San Saba will be the easiest part of our midnight journey to safety. The Comanches could be waiting on the other side of the river to attack us again." Fray Molina spoke quietly. "The only chance we have is to reach the Presidio de San Saba and the protection of Colonel Parrilla and his soldiers, my friends. Say a silent prayer and let's get going." Fray Molina directed his small band of survivors across the San Saba River. Once at dry ground, he led them to the cover of brush lining the west bank, talking in low, soothing tones the whole time. "Remember now, there is a possibility the Comanches are still about, so we must make a run for the Presidio," Molina announced. He knelt beside the woman with a broken leg and gave her a strip of cloth. "If the pain becomes too severe, put this in your mouth and bite down on it. You must not cry out, whatever you do." Nodding, the woman did as she was told and placed the cloth between her teeth. The distance from the river, the Presidio, was not so great, but it was all open ground. The full moon shone down on the shortened grass of early spring, doing little to offer him and his flock any protection. Molina could see the silhouettes of the soldiers on the top of the Presidio standing with rifles ready. After reaching the safety of the high walls of the Presidio, Fray Molina reported the atrocities he had witnessed to Colonel Parrilla. Later, he asked for a room where he could seek solace and pray for the souls of those parishioners and the 2 priests who had died in this massacre. He never overcame the heartbreak of the savagery dealt to his fellow priests and the others in the mission. The horrible image of his friends, one being beheaded and the other slashed into dozens of pieces, was more than his tortured mind could bear. Day and night he whispered words of prayer, and the rosary beads clicking together could be heard throughout the encampment. Day after day he refused food, citing self-inflicted punishment as a reason for his refusal to eat. After a 3-day wait to make sure the Comanches weren't coming back to the mission, the time came to bury the dead. Colonel Parrilla begged Fray Molina to stay at the Presidio. Weakened from the ordeal of the massacre, coupled with his exhaustion and lack of food, and barely able to walk, Fray Molina insisted on going back to the mission. Since it did not prevent the massacre, it can at least attend to the dead. You were a stubborn man, Fray Molina, Colonel Parrilla said. What happened to the mission was not your fault, Father. Father Terreros refused to abandon the mission when I reported impending disaster. The blame must lie with the Father President of the mission. But I hid myself away like a coward. I watched the Comanches ride into the mission and massacre my friends and fellow man. Instead of trying to help the poor souls who died, I hid away in terror and cried like a baby. In his mind, Fray Molina still envisioned Fray Jose's head rolling across the blood-soaked ground. He remembered the bloodlust in the eyes of savages who had killed so easily. Those images stood out as nightmares he lived throughout night after night. Because of the attack on the mission, all Spanish settlements were thrown into a panic. No one, especially the underpaid soldiers, were willing to leave the safety of Presidio San Saba garrison to help protect the surrounding settlements. Some soldiers stated that if the settlers were foolish enough to come to this barren land, that they should defend themselves. In 1766, Captain Rabago, the new commander of the Presidio, requested permission to destroy a French fortress on the Red River several hundred miles away. The Comanches sought up help from the French there, but Captain Rabago's superiors thought they knew best, and the request was denied. By 1767, the Spanish government ordered that all horses were to be removed from the Rio Presidio San Saba, and later, due to another Comanche raid in June of 1768, it was abandoned. The relinquishment of the Presidio de San Saba heralded to the end of Spain's political and military strength in Texas. After 1768, the land between the Rio Grande and San Antonio was pretty much left to the roving bands of hostile Comanches, Lipi and Apaches, Kiowas, Karankawas, and the other nomadic tribes of Texas. Presidio de San Saba holds many secrets and ghosts. Upon visiting the Presidio on the evening of the Comanche moon, the ghostly sound of clicking beads and whispers could be heard from across the river. Darkness rolled into the brush, and my friend and I listened to quiet prayers being uttered under a frightened breath. As we crossed the entrance of the fort, a calm came over me, the calm of a place of protection. I felt compelled to go inside a round turret at the corner of the fort, but rubble from the walls that have collapsed over the time blocked my entryway. My friend's reaction was quite the opposite. Her scalp crawled, and although the temperature was quite warm, goosebumps covered her arms. The reaction continued the entire time we were at Presidio San Saba. Even after we left, the sensation she experienced remained with her for the next 10 to 12 miles. We had several other stops and passed the Presidio San Saba on our return route. Her bad feelings, along with the goosebumps, returned until we were well away from Rio de Presidio de San Saba. I believe that the urgency for me to go inside the tower came from Fray Molina and his desperate prayers that remained trapped forever inside the fallen Presidio. I believe that in the midst of those ruins, all who venture into the Presidio de San Saba will fall under the protection of Fray Molina's prayers. We were told that on nights when the Comanche moon rides high in the sky, Fray Molina's whispered prayers and clicking of his rosary are heard throughout the encampment. Thank you for watching this episode. See you next time.